Prepare yourself for a sprawling discussion on just about anything, where critical thinking meets pop culture in a collision of mind-bending proportions. Please secure all neurons and prepare for full frontal cortex. It's time for Incoherent Ramblings.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another exciting and entertaining episode of Incoherent Ramblings.
We don't know it's entertaining yet.
That's true. Well, let's ask our audience.
We're hopeful.
Episode 012. We're at number 12, and today we're doing Paul's pick from last week, the digital evolution. Yes, how the digital evolved. Wait, no. How
Digital technology?
digital information,
Yeah.
digital, how everything became all computerized and
Digitized.
And I'll say
randomized.
off the bat, I think this is one of
and
Deep fried.
So quick introductions here. I'm Joey Sham. We also have
Cale Anderson. Paul Hodiger.
Daryl Jors.
I can't. I'm pointing at you, Booger.
And Booger.
Robert
That guy.
Magallanes.
Robert Magallanes, who is once again coming to us over the phone. As you may have heard 2 weeks ago,
Shrimp jambalaya.
North Carolina did
Cocktail
South.
shrimp.
North. You're right.
I was right. North Carolina
Yeah,
did not get
got
destroyed
it.
by a meteor. His phone just sucks. Also, as an observer today, we have one of our Incoherent Rambling members, our Incognito Rambling member, Ralph Niederlander, who is just coughing and who is here just to listen to the podcast, but he might join in if he feels like it.
We got an audience tonight.
He's so far off mic, we'll never hear
I
him.
know.
as he
He'd have
shouts.
to come over here and
yeah.
take the seat.
Our first male audience.
Oh, now that's significant.
Whoa.
And just since this is the beginning, let's make a quick note.
Go low.
For all of you, I'm sure for all of you that have been trying to
You're supposed to save it for the ladies, my friend.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Joey. You can try.
No, it's okay. Go ahead. Talk about the ladies. Talk about going low. For all of you who have been trying to contact us for our email that we tell you every week, we did have a little problem. It's all okay now.
Yes.
Excuse me. We had pizza. It's all okay now. So you can email us. If you were getting bounced back before, all you guys out there, you can email us.
April Fool.
Well, that was a long fool's prank, I tell you.
So
Half the month.
show at IamRambling.com is now available. Also, tonight's episode is brought to you by Fall of Cybertron Grimlock. Me, Grimlock, want to munch metal.
Okay, then.
Grimlock King.
Is that what he's...
Grimlock
Is that his
King.
pickup line for RC?
No, it's me, Grimlock, eat butt.
Oh, he does have a
okay.
shield.
Eat butt. Let's kick butt.
Well, no, for Garcia, it's eat butt. 'Cause he's into that.
Yeah, that's very
Is
interesting.
that rimming?
What? Yeah, okay.
So we have...
Moving on.
Do we have a real trend here of Fall of Cybertron
Well, it's just
toys?
what I've been buying lately.
Yeah.
All my other Transformers and toys are in storage.
It's the new hotness right now.
He'll bring him out after he runs through these.
Yeah, I know. Maybe we've been Transformers for a
genres are
while.
next.
Maybe I'll move into Star Wars. I got a whole bunch of Star Wars under the bed. So that sounds weird.
Well, that's better than something should be
Right
having
next,
in bed.
right next to the if the engine goes dead, hook her up.
Yes.
Yes.
Nice.
Oh, we don't have one for tonight. All right. That's okay. We'll fill something. Anyway, so let's get back to what we're talking about. The digital evolution. We're going to start off with the history of computers. The main reason I think Paul wanted to do this is because we're in a very interesting generation. The people who lived before us, the generations before us, really didn't know.
The people from the Stone Age.
Yeah. The 50s.
Yeah, I know.
I didn't call them amoebas.
Those,
The people who lived before us, the generation before us, they really didn't know too much about computers. It wasn't really part of their lives. And the generation after us don't know a world without computers. So we're at a weird point where when we were kids, we were just barely being introduced to computers. And now that we're adults, it's in every part of our life. There's not going to be any other generation that's going to have something like this.
Yeah, we were part of the pioneer times of the computer age.
Yeah, your pioneer times.
I knew that was going to come out.
An old prospector voice. Ooh, gonna get me one of those Commodore 64s.
I can't wait
gonna
for the
find
cure
me
for that
some
voice.
megabytes. Whee! Yeah.
Seriously.
But it's true.
When is the cure for old man voice coming?
That's not just old man voice. That's old man
Old man
If it
Woody.
was old man voice, it would just be like this.
It's much better as a prospector.
Oh yeah! That's old man voice on
Sounds like-
crack.
He sounds like he needs to have the prospector milk.
Notice that every time I do it, I have to move my
You always have the arms.
I have to move my arms like this for some reason. Oh, look
Okay,
at
we
me,
gotta
I'm a
make an
prospector.
animated GIF now.
All right, so let's talk about computers. You guys, let's just start with we're talking about the history of computers. As everyone out there knows, started in the 50s and 60s. You know, we're not going to go too much into that, but I think it's important, and I'm going to go to Daryl for this, but anyone can jump in. Digital, analog, difference. I mean, I think that's pretty important if we're talking about the digital evolution.
Yeah.
Maybe give a very simplified explanation for those of us like me out there who kind of know the difference.
Okay, well, analog is anything that can have an infinite variance. So a good example would be doing something like recording audio. Okay, sound waves are always going to be analog because it's the motion of the air. So you could represent the motion of the air as sound in a waveform. So as time goes on, it rises, it lowers. Now, if you need to digitize this, you need to turn it into ones and zeros. So digital, the difference with it is it works well with machines because you can build simple logic gates and simple memory storage that relies on just two factors, ones and zeros. So instead of recording anything analog, if, depends on your age, you might remember recording to a cassette tape. That's an analog recording, and you never get the same sound out of it again.
Right,
It's
because if
always
you
gonna
record
change.
a recording
Yeah.
of a recording of a recording,
And
it
if
gets
you
made
made
worse.
bootlegs
one tape
really,
to
really
another,
bad. Yeah, it got worse
that
and worse.
analog signal degrades from recording to recording. Now, digital can be stored precisely because it's all ones and zeros, and that's one of the keys to it, is that there's such a variance between a 1 and a 0, it's hard to mistake one for the other. And then you can employ mathematical error correction, so even when they are mistaken, you can revert them back to what they're supposed to be. So it's robust, you can make perfect copies of your information, and the logic gates can be created pretty simply. And it's that logic that drives all of the technology we have. All the CPUs, the computers, and everything are all built upon this logic.
Question for you. It sounds like we use digital because it's simpler. I mean, besides the making perfect copies, which another addition.
That's
if we
one
get to the
advantage,
point where our technology is, with the singularity.
Singularity.
I was like,
Singularity.
when the singularity comes, would we stop using digital and go to something analog if we have that capability to be more complicated, or are we all kind of always going to be doing digital stuff for technology?
Well, digital is good for the kinds of machines we build now, especially with transistor technology.
Right.
and
But in the
whatnot.
future...
But in the future, when we start talking about doing things, later on we're going to talk about
Yeah.
genetic computers, and the genes themselves have more than just two varieties. And I would have to study up, but there are 4 different
Okay, let's hold off on
For
that. then.
DNA computers.
We'll
four
get to that.
different
Yeah.
proteins that make up the DNA.
Okay, so then
So
moving-
then it wouldn't be binary.
Right,
It'd be,
gotcha.
Yeah, base 4.
So then moving on, I guess what we want to look at now is the big advance in digital technology, which was the microprocessor, correct? That's when everything really became digital, or started to, I suppose. And it's when it brought technology to the masses, or computer to the masses. So anybody want to bring up something from that?
Paul?
Well,
No,
I'm
okay.
reading this, yeah. So the microprocessor really revolutionized computer technology because of the digital age. What was it? The Moore's law. You'd be able to put so many transistors within a microchip that at that time, I think at the beginning it was like every year they'd be able to double it over and over. So you're doubling the power of the computer every year. Right now, it's
every
probably
2
2.
years.
It's more like
It's
3 right now.
Every 18
every-
months, actually.
18
Okay,
months.
is a
Yeah.
transistor
It's been
a
slowing
lot...
down.
Okay, the Moore's law can be expressed a couple of different ways, but the way it was originally expressed was that the number of transistors in a particular space can be doubled every 18 months. And that's held relatively true, surprisingly, for so long.
Especially they came up with it so early.
Even Moore was surprised how long it was true for and how accurate it turned out to be. Now, that doesn't always expressly mean twice as much computational power, but you can kind of guesstimate that that's going to be about right.
Question. Go ahead.
Oh, I would say also with the introduction of the microchip, it was a lot cheaper to produce than before. Like before with the vacuum tubes and whatever else they were using. So it really was able to bring the personal PC at home and stuff. Because then the average people were able to buy it. Businesses were able to buy computers instead of just rich corporations.
Is a transistor where the logic gates are? I guess you could say the simplest part is the logic gate, the yes and no, the 0 and 1, right? So is there like is that the hierarchy? Is like logic gates go up to transistor, or are they kind of the same thing?
Well, they're made out of transistors.
Oh, okay,
and
gotcha.
Other components, diodes as well.
And actually, I honestly thought it was the development of the transistor that more superseded the microchip. Because, I mean, you might remember, I don't really remember, none of us were really old enough to remember when transistor radios came out the gate and everyone was like, oh, look, you don't have to plug into the wall, it's not made of wood and all that kind of crap. And so that, I thought, was actually the big breakthrough. And I took advantage of it.
Kale, why don't you talk to that, because you're a little older than us.
I didn't want to admit that, but I do remember when the transistor radio came out. I was a little kid, but I remember my sisters getting one, and they were so excited.
So wait. What's so cool about the transistor radio compared to a regular?
Because it became small and you could carry it
because
around.
it wasn't that big one you see in the old movies where all the family sitting
Right,
around
the big
listening.
wood one.
It was
right.
vacuum tubes before.
Yeah,
Right.
You didn't want to drop that.
No.
So that's why you hear a transistor radio. And okay.
Well, vacuum tubes and other technology that predated transistor technology had a lot of drawbacks. First of all, they were expensive to manufacture. They were large. They were delicate. They gave out a lot of heat and used a lot of energy to do their work. And they also had problems of leakage and burning out and things like that too.
Anal leakage.
So
they weren't as accurate either, right?
Yeah,
My anal leakage is never
modern
accurate.
equipment can be pretty accurate with analog vacuum tube technology, but
And I know I'm pretty accurate with my anal leakage.
Oh, that's impressive.
That's good.
wow.
That's good. Can you do art? Is it put it up in museums?
Can I imitate Tub Girl? No, not that well.
I don't know what that is, and I don't want to know. But we'll put it in the show notes. Check the show notes. Wait, do we want to put that in the show notes?
Anal leakage?
No, Tub Girl?
Boogers,
No,
anal
you don't
leakage?
want to put Tub Girl in the notes.
Okay, so we're not putting Tub Girl in the show notes. Look it up on your own.
Oh.
Okay.
It's something you'd have to go see on your own.
Oh.
So now, when I was a kid, computers, of course, were just starting out, and I remember my dad and my mom both worked in computers. And as a kid, you guys, you could say what you're like. Paul's dad worked at the railroad.
Yeah.
He worked with trains. And it was like Daryl's dad was engineer, made airplanes and stuff.
Mechanical engineer.
Mechanical engineer,
Yeah.
right? And it was like my parents, they worked with computers, and in the 80s, like as a kid in third, fourth grade, I'd say, what's a computer? How do you explain that in the 80s to a kid? I mean, it's just, I didn't know what they did. I had no clue.
Well, my mom always proudly boasts that she worked with computers in the late 50s. And she talks about the punch cards and everything.
Which my dad worked with
Yeah.
at
But,
IBM.
Those are awesome note cards.
She was data entry, so she would put the punch card in and type, and put in another punch card. And it's just scary to think about the number of punch cards you would need to match the storage that you get on one of these USB thumb drives.
Oh my
I mean,
God.
it would be like
God.
a room full of
Yeah,
these
it'd be
things.
storage room.
For those of you who don't know, and
Stacked to the moon.
We'll put it in the show notes. See, for me, we called them IBM cards. And to me, being a kid, I didn't know what they were. But they were all over the house, because when you have somebody who works in a company, my dad worked for IBM and computers, they had all those punch cards. He brought boxes of them home, and they were notepads. That's all we use for notepads. The whole house. I still got some notepad IBM cards. I didn't know why there were numbers on the back. I thought it was some learning thing for kids. They could count to 10 or something like that. I had no idea.
Like a Scantron.
Exactly. When he took me to see how they worked, I was like, why are there holes in your notepads? Because that's how they worked.
Well,
That's really funny. In my high school, we actually had a computer that used punch cards.
Yeah.
And so my first encounter was in my math class. We were using those old cards that they had used for our scratch paper.
Yeah, see, exactly.
I remember I used to get stacks of them from you, and also
Anybody who was my friend.
the printer paper that had the feeder.
That's right. Yeah.
What is that called?
Daisy.
It's,
Dot matrix?
Dot matrix?
Daisy wheel.
right. Well, those are the printing, but what's the paper?
With
It
the
has
perforated
holes,
paper?
Perforated paper. I guess.
Yeah, well, yeah, because that was my
There's
parents.
a
My
name
parents-
for
that
that.
was
That's not
computer
coming to me
paper.
right now. Yeah,
Check show
computer
notes.
paper.
But yeah, no, my parents would bring home all this paper, all these cards, all the time. We always had stationery like that from computers. And because my parents weren't computers, we got one of the first, what I just found out was a portable computer. I never knew that, the Osborne. Because we didn't use it as a portable computer. It was just our first computer that we had. But I'm reading the stuff Paul had and putting in the show notes. The freaking Osborne was like the first laptop.
Yeah, and it was like 23, 24 pounds.
Yeah, and it did have I didn't think of it till now because we never really moved it, but it has a handle on it.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things that you could carry it with you. And I remember the very first time I saw the Osborne at your house, I thought to myself, this thing has 4 floppy drives on it? What's with that? It's actually dual floppy drives, and then it has the containers underneath for the discs.
That's right, I remember that.
That's kind of a novel idea because that's part of the portability of it. I mean, I presume you loaded your OS on one drive and saved your files to the other one. But where do you put the discs when you're traveling?
Right, you put them in the slot.
With it.
Yeah.
It's like its own fanny pack.
Yeah, and I seem to remember, because it has a little portable screen on it, but we always had another monitor hooked up to it so we could have the big monitor, because, like I said, we didn't use it for portable. We used
I didn't realize it had an output.
Yeah, it did. At least I'm pretty sure we did,
It wasn't
right?
always,
we didn't use the small one, we used the big one. Because we used to play Adventure, which was, a role-playing game, all text-based. And I gotta find that, because I couldn't get through the crevice, man. There was this one, I got through a whole bunch of things. There's this one crevice where you had to let go of all your stuff, put it down to get through, but then you don't have your torch. And then you fall into a hole.
Did you find Zyzix?
Oh, yeah, of course, X, Y, Z, Y. I will never forget X, Y, Z, Y. That's how you get back to the building.
Yeah. So my brother, John, was really into text adventure games, and I never got the bug for that. I needed graphics.
I didn't do that.
Me too.
Because when my dad got the first computer, because he worked with communications at railroads, so he's a ham radio operator, so he has everything electronic and all this stuff. Was a
Your
Commodore.
dad's back room.
Yeah, I remember.
It's awesome.
Dude, he still has RAM from like a 486 computer, and predate all this stuff.
Right.
I keep telling him when we have the zombie apocalypse or whatever, and it's like there's the one weapon that can destroy everything. They need one little piece. It's going to be in his room.
Yeah, whatever it is.
It's going to be like
He's
Stephen Gross's character in Tremors.
Definitely.
What was his name?
Which one?
Stephen Gross's character in Tremors. The guy with all the guns.
With all the guns, yeah. That's
Except your dad's going to have the CB radio and all the computers.
Everything.
Dude, Apocalypse, we're going over to Paul's parents'
He'll have a
house.
generator.
Ham radio. I don't want to disrespect him.
Ham radio. I'm sorry. My mistake.
Don't want to.
Yeah.
We got a CB radio when we were kids.
We did.
That was fun. But anyway, back
so
to
with the Commodore 64, like for me, the
Commodore
computers was video games.
Yeah, exactly.
Because it got this, I'm like, wow, this is awesome. I can type my homework. I was like, whatever.
Yeah.
But it was all about, hey, I remember just getting this guy, his friend named Dick. We used to go to the ham radio swap meet with every month. Oh, I think
Booger,
no!
Oh, no.
Booger got scared.
Wait, he's still there. Wait, are you
Still
there?
here.
Oh,
okay.
that was weird.
Oh,
you
no,
got a
I got a text
Oh.
from my wife that says, "We love you, Daddy." Oh, that's so sweet.
How nice.
No, it says, who's your dad? Oh,
So everyone listening to the podcast, that was Joey's phone.
Aww.
You didn't get a text. That was us.
Oh, yes. Yes. I got a
Yeah,
text
Joey got a text.
from the...
Hey, when you get a
from
text
the-
on air,
Yeah.
to all of us.
So, she called everybody Daddy.
Aww.
Who's your dad?
Sweet.
For those that don't know, I am expecting...
When you were talking
well,
about
not
the
being, but-
Commodore 64, that was the first
You're like that
computer
movie, Junior.
that I ever used, and it was the first computer I ever
not.
hacked.
Oh, really?
Because
Nice.
you remember the number guessing game that they had on there where you guessed the number and it said, "You're incorrect, try again"? Well, we broke into it and we started making it rude. So that when you got the wrong answers, it would say, "You're a freaking idiot. Why can't you get this?"
Ooh,
And it got worse and worse as you
I
missed
remember the
them.
number guessing game.
Yeah. Well, I couldn't believe we hacked into it and did that.
Well, I remember, then see, my other memory of computers is, because Paul always had the Commodore 64, and he had Jumpman.
Oh,
And
Jumpman
we
was
played
classic.
Jumpman
I had that on my 800.
Love that
also.
game.
And I remember I finally got the 64, but it was the 64/128.
Yeah, that's right. You
You
had the
have
hybrid
Jumpman
one.
too. also?
Because
Yeah.
the
And Jumpman Jr.
But the thing was,
Oh, that's what I'm thinking of.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was Junior.
Were they like
yeah.
stick figures or something?
yeah,
Yeah, those
and
stick fit-
yet you're a man, and you had to jump.
Yeah, just you go on YouTube and look up Jumpman. They have all the levels and stuff.
But the thing that
It'll
was
be in
weird,
the show notes.
yeah, the thing that was weird was that we got the 128, so it's supposed to be the new one. We never used the 128 for anything because it was like Paul says, video games, and all the video games were on the Commodore 64. 128, okay, word processor.
Well, when
Okay,
you get that's one of the things about having a platform. That's where like game consoles have an advantage these days. Is that you're going to make a game for Xbox 360 or PlayStation 3. It's just a platform, and everyone has the same hardware, and you know what you're writing for. When a developer makes a game for a PC, there are literally 10,000 different configurations you can get with different processors, motherboards, cards, and everything. So you have to write something that'll work across everything. And that's one of the things when there were more standardized platforms in the past, like the Commodore 64, etc. There was the same thing on Atari's side also. You could get a version that had more memory, but so little the market actually had that version that very few programs supported it, because the developers would look at it and go, well, we can market the program to 1 million people if we write it for the base unit, and we can only market to 10,000 people if we do the one that requires more memory.
And the other thing was also, it's interesting, I think for a lot of us, our first computers were the Commodore 64, and that was based at home. I know it was for you, and I know it was for you. Well, Amiga, of course, ended up being
that
for
was later on.
That was a little later on.
Atari, the 800.
Right, and
basically, like in '80, we got the Atari 800. And then,
Atari made a computer. Oh, that's right.
Yeah, that's like in Mr. French's class.
Right.
Somewhere along the way, we wound up with an Atari 400 and a TI. TI.
Trash 80.
No, Texas Instruments.
TRS 80, the Trash 80.
That was
that's sitting right there.
Oh, yeah, there it is.
Well, the TRS 80 is a Tandy, isn't it?
Yeah.
Wait, Tandy, wasn't that Radio Shack?
Yeah, Radio.
Yeah. Oh, he's got one.
There we go.
Yeah.
Very nice.
So we put this in the show notes just for some. I know you can't see anything, but I brought the Radio Shack TRS-80 microcolor computer, still in box and not used.
Wow.
This was in my.
Wow.
This is my dad's garage. He might have used it a couple times, but I don't know where he got it.
That might be something worth something like
on this episode of Storage Wars.
Yes.
They always think it's worth a lot,
That's
with the Radio Shack bag.
Well, the thing is,
all right,
not now, but in 100 years.
Are we going to link the show notes to eBay on this item?
No way, it's too classic.
All right.
No, you need to keep that. Yeah.
This has been his garage.
So anyway, that was our. It's funny that everything became very PC as we call it now.
Yeah.
Back then we called it IBM computers.
Back then everyone was just rude.
Yeah.
Now they're PC.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, my first computer was an genuine IBM 8086.
Oh, yes.
That's audio.
I was in Korea. Mine was the clone. It was a clone of the IBM.
Well, that was the whole thing, is that IBM, put their thing out there, and so everybody liked it.
I still remember getting
I kind of got us off track because you're talking Amiga, but that was like 88 or so.
Well, what I was trying to say was that
I got mine in 86.
For my
your Amiga.
No.
Oh, okay.
The IBM clone.
See, for Booger,
you were really early.
Yeah.
For
Booger and Kale, they were IBM, which is how most people were. But for I think us, we went from Commodore 64 to the Amiga, which was the updated, better version.
And I remember getting the Amiga because I liked Commodore, and Daryl had all the kick-ass video games.
Yeah.
For those who aren't familiar,
I remember getting it on Christmas and then going to Daryl's house and copying everything.
Just to give it a point of reference. Early games on the PC had the real squawky sound effects and like blocky graphics and stuff like that. But on an Amiga around the same time, it was kind of like a Sega Genesis, only it was a
stereo
real computer.
Yeah. And it had Windows.
Yeah.
Which was really the ones who invented Windows, right? Before Windows, wasn't that the whole thing?
Yeah, it had
kind of their idea
a windowed GUI and multitasking, a bunch of pretty.
The thing was, of course,
of its time stuff.
You only had 1 megabyte of storage, but you had a disk drive, right?
The base model was 512. Actually,
and
then
you had to get the
most
expansion.
people expanded theirs to 1 meg.
That's right.
Yeah.
But
and the funny story for
most
me,
games were written to run on the 512K version.
So the funny story for me is that I only knew Amigas and one other computer, which we'll get to in a second. But I only knew Amigas, and so for me, I knew, of course, you have storage of 1 megabyte. So my sister buys this computer, this IBM computer, and she says, "Oh yeah, Joey, it's got 30 megabytes of memory," and I'm like, "That's impossible. You're thinking it wrong. I know computers, and that doesn't exist."
This is a very Luke Vader moment.
Yeah.
That's impossible. Cappy, that's impossible. But it was because Amiga.
Joey, my computer has 30 megs.
No, it isn't true. That's impossible.
Read the manual. You know it to be true.
No.
You know Windows 3.1 is a memory hog. All right.
There is no other way.
And I thought my
I'm sorry,
computer
this-
was so
this-
cool because it had 2 floppy 5 1/4 drives.
Oh,
Didn't even
that was-
have a hard
you're-
drive.
As if we
You're a
weren't there
boss.
before, this podcast totally reached warp factor nerd.
Leia. Man.
He's still doing the Star Wars scene after all this time.
Wait. Luke needs us. Turn the ship around. Turn the ship around. Leia knows where Luke is.
He's off the rails. How long has it been? 26 minutes?
Take us to best speed.
He's off the rails real early.
Fastest
And
episode ever.
I think, ladies and gentlemen who listen to this podcast, understand Joey's actually sober right now.
I'm always sober. Turn the ship. Okay, so the other type of computer I wanted to bring up was the one we all knew about because we had them at school, which was the Apple.
Oh, boy.
the Apple II.
IIe? Apple IIe,
yeah.
yes.
Yes.
And Oregon Trail.
Oregon
What did we
Trail,
always
yes.
play on the Apple? Oregon Trails.
Never had it, never played it.
It was slightly out of your generation.
Man, that's
was kind
another
of like
time,
the-
old man.
I know.
I remember it was called the Media Center because we didn't have computer labs back then.
Yeah,
in
that was the
Longdon.
earliest nerd cred possible. You could get a pass to the computer lab.
Yeah.
But no,
During-
it wasn't
during-
computer
during
It was the
lunch
Media
recess.
Center.
True.
The Media Center was part because it also had the what are those things where you watch the stories and heard the
Oh, dude,
yeah.
with the records and the slide things.
Yeah, the slide things and stuff like that.
Oh,
so it was
yeah.
the Media
And
Center.
microfiche.
The media
But
center.
then they had the computers all around with Miss Wong.
Miss Wong, yeah.
Miss Wong was not Asian either for some strange reason. She,
Well, her husband was.
her husband must have been, I guess. And she was also on the end of the Huey Lewis video, If This Is It, being chased by the shark.
That's right.
We always thought that was her. But anyway, so the Oregon Trails, where
Wow.
we would go for our computer time, and we got to play Oregon Trails, which is how long could your people survive on the
Yes.
road?
I always died of diphtheria.
Yeah.
There's a T-shirt with that.
Dysentery.
Dysentery, yeah.
Oh, that too.
I think it was diphtheria.
Yeah, there's a shirt for that.
And yeah,
Dysentery.
I don't think
My
I made
bad.
it very far. I think
You see, I was so sick I can't remember the name of my disease. So
But yeah, so the Apple IIe, and then when we got to high school, what I remember about the Apple IIe, the first thing was that Paul could do this program that made it repeat.
Oh, the basic.
The
repeat,
basic
yeah.
thing where you're able to go over and over, and you could say something, it would just
Go,
like
go 10,
Prince.
go to 20. Yeah,
Right,
go
right.
to.
yeah, and then it
go
would
to
say
10
something,
print.
and then he'd leave it
Yeah.
for Mrs. Henry. Mrs.
yeah.
Henry to find.
I learned all that in summer school
It would
with Mr.
say-
French.
Mr. French, wasn't I?
it'd be one line.
I did a class
think
with
you
you
did,
with that
yeah.
for binary.
TNR, right?
You know?
But yeah, and we did some graphics on those computers, but by then we had Daryl's Amiga,
Yeah.
so it was all.
Like, this Daryl do it.
So yeah,
And
so that
Tetris was on those computers.
Ah, yes. So I think for us, and now we can get more into with Kale too, because I think what happened in the 80s and into the 90s is there was this dichotomy of you either were in the PC, what's now called PC, but back then was called IBM or IBM
Or you were a
clone.
Mac.
Or you were a Mac, exactly.
No,
Or the four of us had it.
Well, it wasn't Mac, it was Apple, and
No, it's kind of like there's PC and then everyone else. And I didn't want to necessarily put down PC as like, you know, it especially when we were in high school, PC stuff started getting a lot more impressive because the graphics and sound got a lot better. And they were always good at productivity. I remember being really impressed going to Jared's house. They had a PC clone.
oh, I remember that. Yeah.
And he would like print custom invitations and stuff. Now it was all ASCII art, you know. It sounded like I was going somewhere else with that, but it was, you know, it's just the text, but
always
it,
good to
you know,
have an
was
ASCII.
blocked so that it would. Like I remember one time you sent like a,
Are you the
a
ASCII
birthday-
master? I am the ASCII.
I'm the ASCII
By the
keeper.
power of ASCII.
Oh, where did this go? But one year he sent out an invite that had like a skull and crossbones on it.
Oh, I
It's
remember
like,
that. I think I still have
beware,
that.
Don't open. Yeah,
Yeah.
I've got it somewhere too. But that kind of thing was really novel back then because who could make their own custom printed cards?
Yeah.
Yeah, there was no
And
software
I couldn't do it on my Atari 800 at the time. That's for darn sure.
And I remember
Yeah.
when we got in later on with Twisters, we used to make whole banners like
Yeah,
And
one
this-
letter at a time with print shop.
yeah, with print shop, that was it. But yeah, you either had the PCs or the other. I remember I think you told me, or somebody told me, well, PC kind of let their idea go to anyone, so that's why people made clones. And Apple said, no.
Right.
You were keeping. That's why they had such a small market at the time.
Well, yeah,
'cause
there were a bunch of
it was
closed
small.
systems
Yeah, right.
around the time. Phones are, if you want an analog for it, phones are a little bit like that.
Yeah.
Because Android is kind of like the PC because it's free for whoever to use. If you want to make your own Android
And as
phone,
usual,
feel free. Apple's closed, and then there are things like BlackBerry and
The outside
a bunch
stuff.
of other little
The
competitors
Tandies of,
that are
the Tandies of today.
a small part of the market.
Radio Shack's still in business.
I know, it's pretty amazing, but if you think about it with Radio Shack, if you need a wire that's a little hard to find, there's nowhere else to go.
Yeah.
Well, okay. Granted, now on the internet there is, but I think the only reason that Radio Shack's made it this far, and they probably won't make it much longer, is because that's how it's always been. You go, where do you go? You go to Target, you can maybe get the basic wires, or Best Buy's too expensive, but you go to Radio Shack and you can find something a little
And they
bit.
do sell
not
other
everywhere.
phones and
Yeah, and
But you
price
know
on
what,
all
though? I've been boycotting them ever since they made fun of Paul's Dinosaur 8-track.
Who?
Radio Shack.
Shack? Oh yeah.
Dude, man, the 8-track. I didn't even know
don't
what
take
an
it out of the
8-track
truck,
was.
man.
Okay, for me, cassettes is what I went from records to cassettes. 8-tracks were not in my view at all growing up. I didn't know
that was before
That was kind of-
records. This was because my dad had it.
Well, and then that was what happened is you got the jalapeno, which was his truck in high school, and it had this weird thing. It was like a tape, but it wasn't a tape, and you put it in. It was awesome.
But remember, we.
And then if you remember, he also had a machine that would let you record on the 8-tracks. I mean, it's the only time in my life I could tell anybody that I listened to Guns N' Roses on freaking.
Yeah, dude. Right. That's right.
Oh, that was awesome. Driving down, we'd be in the back of your truck, totally no seatbelts.
Nope.
Just driving down the old pickup, and you'd be blasting Guns N' Roses.
Yeah, I know, dude.
Blasting Guns N' Roses or Weird Al, and we'd just be driving down Live
And
Oak.
the
Las
8-track
Vegas.
was also a CB radio.
Oh, that's right.
Oh, that's right.
The good
was
old
classic.
days.
But you remember in first year of college, we took a little radio course.
Yes, I do remember that.
We used cart machines.
Yeah.
That's right, yeah.
It's like the mono version of an 8-track. They just use the whole tape for one channel of audio, or you could do a stereo cart. But it's really cool how they're designed because they're on like an infinite tape loop. You know, like they would use them for commercials. You would just have like a little tone on there. Mm-hmm. And you stick it in the machine and it plays the commercial, right? And then what it does is when it reaches the tone again, it automatically stops.
Right,
and it's cued to go for the next time. It's ingenious.
Very cool. So, anyway, so that's you guys are hearing a lot about just what we're talking about. I mean, we're talking about the computer evolution, but it's really because we lived through a lot of it, and this is a lot of what happened to us. I mean,
I think though they're generationally, you would find that they're, past generations would be like, oh, I experienced the Industrial Revolution,
Yeah, exactly.
et cetera.
Yeah.
But,
Space age.
that's one of the things about accelerated returns is that
Exactly, yes.
this is happening faster and faster. So maybe it was like a few generations experienced a particular revolution, but this is a revolution that we
Very good
got
point.
to see
Yeah.
from
the beginning,
near
almost.
the beginning.
Yeah, we're a little.
Well,
I think Kale's
yeah.
probably the closest to being at the beginning of it,
Right.
Because probably when you were a kid, like you said, you remember transistor radios coming out when you were younger, but. When was your first idea of an actual, computer? Was that? Do you remember when that was?
Well, the first one was the TRS-80 that my friend had. That I went over and we reprogrammed. That was the first.
Was that the first one you heard about?
Oh
though?
no, that's true. At school, I heard about the big,
the huge computers,
huge
right?
computer using the punch cards, but I never saw it.
Right.
like a mainframe.
So, yeah, the
exactly.
What were they? Share time computers where people would go in and get time on them because only colleges and military or whatever had them.
Yeah.
So and so you're kind of really there where when you were a kid there were pretty much no computers and now they're everywhere.
My first reference of a computer that I remember was watching Kurt Russell in the Computer Wore Tennis Shoes, the Disney movie.
Oh, wow.
That was the
I don't
first
even know
time
what that
I even
is.
heard about the existence
Disney
of a
movie.
computer.
Wow.
It's an old Disney movie.
Is that in the vault?
It's probably in the vault.
I think my first was
Whose
probably
fan is buzzing. Something's going on around here.
Oh,
Actually, to be honest with you, if you guys don't have access to it, I think Anissa has it on DVD, and I could probably make a copy of it.
that would be cool.
Yeah.
I remember as a kid, the big computer one for me was War Games. That's where I learned
Yes.
about it. Like, what was the
Yeah,
thing?
that's where I got mine from.
That whole thing where he put the phone onto the... I was like, how do I
That was
hook my
crazy.
phone onto a computer?
And Tron.
Oh, my God. Oh, and Tron, of course,
Tron
yes.
was like,
well,
what?
for Tron...
Like a
Tron,
bit.
The thing,
Yes,
no.
no.
Tron, for me, did not connect computers because I didn't know enough about computers. So, for me, they were just in a fantasy world. I never connected them to the computers till I got older. But War Games was, hey, that's a computer. They're hooking it up to a phone, and it could go other places.
And brainstorm. Oh,
No,
no.
we should have watched. That would have been awesome, though, to watch War Games.
War Games, yeah.
I didn't think about that.
Too
Would you
late
like
now.
to play a game?
There had to be other computer-based movies, though.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure.
Did Cloak and Dagger have something to do with
Computers? The video game. It was a video game.
That was more of a... Yeah,
Cloak
that
and
was a
Dagger
video
was a video
game
game.
on
Last
like
Starfighter.
Atari or something.
Oh, Last Starfighter, yeah.
I guess there were
then we
more
got,
video game
uh,
tie-ins than computer
The
tie-ins.
Computer Wore Tennis Shoes in 1969. Electric Dreams, 1984.
Never saw that.
Oh, I remember Electric Dreams.
Short Circuit, 86.
Oh, Short Circuit! Johnny Five Alive! I
It's all
love
about
that.
AI, actually computers.
Short Circuit 2 more.
The Andromeda Strain.
Okay, that's enough. We're going to put these in the show notes. Come on.
Tron.
You're making work for Joey.
We don't have
here.
enough room for this. Come on. Shut up, man. Shut up. Can't take room for
This spreadsheet's going to be huge.
The Wizard of Speed and Time.
Oh, that's fine. We'll put that one in.
I cut it on the list, but I had to throw that in there.
That was just a little
I
gift
have to
for
watch
Joey.
that at
Yeah.
least once every 6 months. I don't know
man,
why.
I was-
I love that.
I was
Okay,
obsessed
I've
with
never
that
seen
movie.
it. I need to watch
It's
it.
really good.
You never saw the full movie?
I never saw the film.
How could you be my friend and not have
sorry.
seen the full movie? I was upset. I watched that
sorry.
weekly.
Where's the noodle?
Yeah. Oh, and don't forget, that Nintendo game with the Fred Savage
Yeah, the
kid.
Wizard.
The Wizard.
Yeah.
The Wizard?
Remember that kid?
Yeah, he was
going
like-
to the
Oh my
Nintendo
gosh.
Championship.
Oh, that's right. Yeah,
And the
yeah.
final battle, he had to like wear the glove.
And then that really old movie, Wreck-It Ralph. Had-
I know, man.
I thought that movie was called Smash It Sam.
No, that was the other version. The one
Suck
on
it, Susie.
The one on Spice.
Ah.
Channel 41. Okay,
Oh, man.
so anyway, let's start talking.
Pound it, Paul.
Why don't we start to move into... Did you just say pound it, Paul? We have a new movie to make. Wait, can we do it for everybody? Pound it, Paul.
Darn it, Daryl.
No, it's got to be more sexual.
Kick it, Kale.
Doggy style there.
Doggy style, Daryl.
Hey,
Junk it,
I did not volunteer for this.
Doggy Dare. Junk it, Joey.
Junket Joey. That's weird.
Little job, Joey.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's move on. We'll think one. We'll just
Jiggly.
Jiggly Joey. And then just it's weird. Okay, so
Carrot Kale.
Bosom Booger.
let's talk.
Well, I didn't hear mine. What?
Bosom Booger.
I just hit my head.
Daryl hit his head.
Ow.
So
All right, then.
I'd like to move this on to
Yeah, let's move along.
in the 90s
I'm not
when,
gonna
when
be
we
bent
start
over Daryl or
when the
whatever you
internet
said.
started to become such an important part of the computer.
Oh, before we
Yeah,
okay.
go there,
Networking.
Before we
we
go there.
actually, my friend had his computer hooked up to his office through that was the first internet, and it only went there.
It just went
Yeah.
It
there.
went to his office,
like
and
a
that was
peer-to-peer
it.
thing.
There was nothing else there to go to.
My first experience with the internet was twofold. It was actually I think it was Jared because they had
Prodigy.
CompuServe.
Or CompuServe.
CompuServe, yeah,
Right.
he had CompuServe, but I think it was you and Eddie went to go used to go on bulletin boards, right?
Yeah.
That was the
Yes,
first time I'd
yeah.
ever heard of it. Yeah, and you guys used to.
So did I.
Yeah, how did bulletin boards work? They were you'd go onto it wasn't like a service. You would go onto the company, right? It wasn't like CompuServe.
No, well, the bulletin boards I went on to were just average schmoes like you and I that wanted to run it as a hobby. They had a separate computer with a separate phone line hooked up to it. You called into their computer, their local phone number.
Or sometimes
and-
multiple phone lines.
Yeah, they'd have multiple lines.
Yeah.
On some.
Yeah. And well, like the one, I don't know if you guys remember, I ended up accidentally meeting a very good friend of mine through the bulletin board her father ran. I accidentally hit the wrong button. I thought I was logging off. It turns out I was paging the sysop. And next thing you know, lo and behold, we're still friends to this day.
That's cool.
But yeah, her father would live in an apartment out in South Pasadena. Just like I said, he had a regular voice line for talking, and then he had one other voice line hooked up into his computer, and people would dial in like myself, and it was basically its own little internet of itself. You would leave messages for other people to log in and read. You would play little ASCII-based games, all kinds of stupid crap, and eventually at some point, bulletin boards got smart enough where at like 2 o'clock in the morning, they would all dial into a central server somewhere and exchange messages. So as a matter of fact, Paul, you might remember when I was over at St. Gregory's, I would send an email via bulletin board. It would, at 2 o'clock in the morning, send it to a server, and the following morning, Paul would get it. It was the very earliest versions of email.
Yeah, that was typically run through FidoNet. It was just like a proto-email exchange kind of thing. So someone running, like, you could be a sysop yourself if you want to. There's a debate if it's sysop or sysop, but you could run your own system. It's sysop. And like, you know, one of the more social systems that Eddie and I were on was called Bodtown.
Oh,
they had 32 lines actually. That was pretty unusual for a bulletin board because that's a lot of simultaneous connections. So it had a lot of chat was pretty popular there because oftentimes if you went into chat, maybe there were 2 lines on the system and the sysop could jump in. So like, you know, at most you would be talking to 3 people, but you could have like a big chat going on there. But with something like FidoNet, you know, like if you have your bulletin board running on a computer in the corner of the room, like I said, in the early morning hour, like Booger said, it would just phone into a local hub, and that hub would store messages for people. And then that when systems dial in, it would send new messages and retrieve old ones. And that way the messaging could happen not just in your local vicinity, but across the nation or even internationally. And one of the things to remember here is that's back when the long-distance companies used to pretty much, you know, have their way with you when it came to charging you long-distance fees. And if you ever wanted to transfer files or take your time writing a message to someone or whatever, you would be spending minutes or hours on this thing. So it usually relegated most people just calling within their local distance. You know, so you're only going to call a bulletin board a few miles away from you. So when you need to get that message clear across the country, that's where FidoNet came in because the bulletin board manager would just deal with some long distance charges to every night call FidoNet and you know, distribute all that information.
What I think generations that come after us won't realize, unless they look in the history books, is that the beginning of the internet for the normal person was through the phone. I mean, there's DSL now, which is kind of the phone, but it's not like it was before, where you would have to dial. Yeah, you'd have to dial a number, and the
14.4.
What are we just talking about? What are these things called? Bodtown?
BBS.
Bulletin board services were the beginning of it. And then, of course, the companies that came out where you could become a member, CompuServe, what Jared was a part of. And then, of course, the biggest one ever, which I never became a part of because the internet came out after that and it was better, which was AOL, America Online.
I should have brought it. My dad has like a stack of just
although AOL
100 AOL discs. Dude, he would go, we'd be at Target or anywhere, and he'd like just take one, and now he has like a history of AOL discs.
Well,
for like
somebody just sold an original AOL disc. There's something about it that was like the first one, and it sold for like thousands of dollars.
Because that one was 50,000 hours free instead of just I don't know.
Oh my god!
But yeah, AOL because. I knew a lot of people who were on AOL because it was the first kind of, if you weren't a computer geek, if you didn't know computers, you didn't know how to do bulletin boards, it was CompuServe or AOL. You had to do that to get into anything on the internet. But then as the internet started to grow right after that, when I started getting older and you could get your own service, the best example I remember someone told me was that AOL is like a fishbowl in the ocean of the internet. Right. Yeah. So if you're in AOL, you're kind of trapped. You're in this little mini version.
Well, I remember my first experience with that is my brother got a subscription to AOL. And I went onto it, and I was just unimpressed. I'm thinking, this is like a fancy version of a BBS. What's so special about this? But then I found the button you can go to that's like, open up your browser and go onto the internet. And then that's when things really started going. I'm like, oh, now this is the potential.
Yeah, because everybody
you
had
have
their
to get
own
past
AOL page.
The AOL front end to get to the internet.
Yeah, that's right.
You go see a movie and be like, coming soon, Iron Man 2. AOL keyword Iron Man 2.
Right, and that's what's so interesting because I think what's left over from the AOL hugeness, or whatever you want to call it was AOL keyword. The AOL is gone, and we still use keyword. And I think
that's not the same technology, though.
No, it's not. But I think that the phrase keyword has come from AOL because even 5-10 years ago, you would still hear, AOL keyword.
But
AOL
now
keyword.
everyone says Google.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's true.
That.
But you'll still hear keyword.
So much information. Because at first it was like it was just the internet was just to connect computers together to whatever, and then you get so much information you needed a search engine to decipher anything.
Right.
Right, and then I still
First was
remember
email.
And I still remember
Yeah.
Paul and I got our first internet service.
Yeah, we did.
From I don't remember.
It started with an N.
Oh, I can't remember.
Diginet.
No. It was.
It
where
wasn't
I
net,
got
it
my
wasn't
first
net zero.
We used Net Zero later, but no, it was something before that.
I used the internet service, but you used the mail because I had it at school.
Right. And
I
so
never
what we did
used
was
it.
we split it. It was like
Netscape.
no, not
Netscape.
Netscape. It was
the browser.
no,
Ralph.
It was Netscape we used, but it wasn't the service. It was I can't remember what it was.
Well, yeah.
But anyway, we
Netcom.
Netcom. There it is.
Yeah,
Boom, Netcom.
Oh my gosh, I remember that. Now that you bring it up.
And we had, and the thing is that they didn't know that we were sharing it because we were able to, as long as we weren't on at the same time, he could go on, and then and we split the price.
And you
down
know
the middle.
how it would have been so nice to have
bastards.
an instant messenger or something to notify each other, right?
Yeah.
Hey, I'm not on the internet now. Oh, thanks.
Well, okay, and so the thing is that once again, for generations, like if anyone's listening to this who's like 20, 25 or something like that, to them, the internet could very much be always available. I mean,
Well, the whole
It's like a
idea of
utility.
an always-on internet connection
Yeah.
was so novel when it first came out.
I
It
know.
was awesome.
and wireless.
Yeah.
I remember going to your
Yeah,
house,
that's true.
and you had a laptop with no plugs in it, and you were on the internet, and it freaked me the hell out.
My battery would last 5 minutes.
Yeah. But dude, I was like,
like that.
you're not plugged into anything? And you're like, no, I don't need wires to connect to the, I got wireless. I'm like, holy crap,
I
we're
was
in the
all like,
future.
I was waving my hands around. I'm like, no wires.
It was freaky weird. It was like the first time I saw a scanner at Temple City High School. I was like, you can like put this over it and it will put it into the computer like Tron? And they're like, yeah, it was like a handheld scanner. I was like, oh my god, that is so cool.
You see it zap into
Yeah.
It didn't work like that. But
Is it orange?
Yeah.
And then,
It was close enough for
like,
your
you
mind.
can scan an image of Jeff Bridges, then he appears. Oh, that's...
But no, the
You can
always on
scan
internet.
a supermodel into the computer, and then she comes out of the bathroom.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Weird
there we
science.
go.
They didn't
Yeah.
scan it though. They had little like connectoids and Barbie
Alright.
doll and came out of the bathroom. It's weird science. Just watched it the other week. Pretty badass. Totally corny, but pretty badass.
It's a corny movie.
It's totally corny. It's pretty badass.
It doesn't date very well.
And it doesn't, but it's pretty badass for anyone who grew up with it. Pretty badass.
Okay, then. We get it,
All
Joey.
right.
So, okay.
I think so.
So, for a lot of us, we didn't have internet on all the time. You had to dial up, so you had to
Right.
think about phone. You had to think about, is anyone else going to be using the phone?
Yeah,
Because somebody freaking picked
How
up the
many
phone.
people had their parents, like, pick up the phone
Yeah,
and
you're like,
know-
nah, I'm downloading a picture of Star Wars!
Exactly.
Exactly. Okay, and you're downloading a picture of Star Wars. How long did that take?
That was a good hour.
Right.
Yeah, it's like,
Yeah.
and it's like, oh, I had Luke's head, or whatever.
And we were also used to seeing the little pictures draw down the screen
Yeah.
as they're loading.
It was
And-
like hair and then eyes, and then you start to get to the boot. Oh wait,
Well, no.
boots.
boots.
I think we have to put
Because
this
it's
in
a Star Wars picture.
that we are honestly the generation that went from not having any accessibility to porn except for magazines to having it
Yes.
wherever we wanted it. Oh my God! We're not
Without
getting,
wires, too.
yeah, without wires.
yes.
You didn't have a videotape machine?
Well, and videotapes,
Well, yeah, but
magazines.
we-
But the thing is,
You had to get the videos.
as a
though.
kid, it's hard to get that stuff.
Yeah.
You
You
know,
didn't make your own?
dude.
Dude, I was 12.
Dude,
I was not. I
You're a
was not in Michael
pervert.
Jackson's video making class.
You know,
no. When we were kids, you had to steal one from your parents, or you had to, you had to go and be all sneak. I mean, as I was a good kid, so I didn't like have any of that crap. And then the internet came, and it was like, holy crap! I can look up anything.
Yeah,
So-
and you mean anything?
Yeah, and now kids in my class who are in like fourth, fifth grade know things they should not know.
True.
Because I remember seeing my first naked picture. I think Paul, you showed it to me or somebody. We were walking home from like third grade.
Paul!
And it was like a little. Was it you? I don't know. It was like it was a little card, and I was like,
corrupted.
That's
innocent
weird.
little
I don't know, I
Joey
don't
here.
remember that.
But kids today, they are seeing stuff
Oh yeah.
because of the internet. It's just like it's insane, and you can't protect them from everything. But
And,
no,
and their parents aren't.
but yeah, exactly. But the reason we got so much into, I think, to using the computers was because of porn. It was, we had to figure out how to get
Well,
that
that's
stuff.
what
You know
blossomed the internet.
This brings
Yeah.
back to one of the points we were making earlier, though, about like how I think all of us are so enthusiastic about computers, not only because we grew up with them, but as Paul said, the first thing that you experienced on there was playing games on it. It was your gaming
it was our gaming
It was your
machine.
fun time.
Yeah.
And I think that, unfortunately, a lot of people are introduced to computers at work for the first time, and it's their word processor and their Excel spreadsheet. And especially if the, if it was before
The older
web
generation.
browsing was popular, or the company clamps down and says, no, you can't visit Facebook while you're on the company computer, then the computers work
Yeah.
to you when that's your experience with it.
Yeah,
So,
for me, it didn't happen till later.
yeah.
I mean, it didn't become a tool.
Right.
And that was... It took me forever to finally get a definition of a computer.
But I think that's the thing, though. Like, even though it's a very powerful tool, if you start out with the perspective of it being a plaything to you, then it's all fun. Even when you're doing something serious on the computer, it's just you're still having fun time.
There's still a part of me
that kind
You've
of
associated it with fun, so it
Yeah.
always will be.
Well, it's like with the new computers, with like an iPad, the mobile gaming, the casual gaming has brought a new rejuvenation to video games, so a whole new generation.
Yeah.
Where people like my mom, she's actually playing like Candy Crush on Facebook.
Oh my God.
the so-called
playing something.
What's that? Angry Birds.
Angry Birds on
Yeah.
my son, he's 4. He's playing all the games on there and can do all that stuff.
So-
I remember
so-called
watching
casual
him doing
gaming.
the Angry Birds.
Casually, exactly, where you don't need to know anything and it's just fun.
Yeah.
But that's an introduction to new
thing
technology, new computers. Just as us was gaming on the Commodore 64 or Amiga, so this is.
But I
their
think it's going to be
introduction on
different because what's happening is, just like Kurzweil said, the idea of computers fading into the background. It's becoming the all-purpose tool, and we're just seeing the results of it. I think kids that are being born today, when they're not going to think of computers as computers. It's just for whatever specific thing it is. You've got your tablet, maybe. This is the closest thing you'll call a computer.
But they don't call it a computer.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's more powerful than the computers we have.
And with Windows
we have
8,
our laptops.
yeah.
This is our computer.
They'll be looking at
Desktop-
they don't
what
have
is my
computers.
portal.
Yeah,
to
what's my
Yeah.
connection?
do whatever I need to
Desktops
do.
are already going out the door. Nobody's really using desktops anymore. They're going to be gone soon. Next is going to be the laptop, because all laptops are becoming
And I have a feeling
pad
too
with a
that
keyboard.
Those of us who have kids, they might grow up and do their own podcast when they're our age. And they'll say, we were there at the beginning. Remember when all the computers were outside our bodies?
yeah, exactly.
We had
yeah.
to touch the screen.
Yeah.
It didn't just read our thoughts and stuff. Like, we were there at the beginning,
When
guys.
Siri
You know?
I'm a crack
misunderstood
shot.
everything we
Wait.
said.
I'm a crack shot.
Oh, yeah.
You mean you have to use your hands? That's like a baby's
Yeah,
toy.
Yeah.
All of us are going to be sitting around going, back in our day, we didn't have drugs. We used to smoke corn.
Wait. Smoke what?
Porn?
Corn.
Oh,
Corn. Oh.
I thought he said smoking
I never
porn.
smoked corn. What are you talking about?
Oh, must be Oklahoma.
Joey
thing, never
smoked
mind.
corn, and I don't care.
Joey smoked corn and I don't care. Joey smoked corn and I don't care. Master's gone away.
So,
What are we talking about? Computers?
the next generation, their new podcasts and stuff.
Yeah, and computers are just going to, I think, and this is a great transition into the next part of our discussion, which is computers becoming more human, integrating with us, and becoming less of an outside thing, but more of what we are. And, we talked a lot about this with when we were doing the singularity, but let's really focus in on the idea, because what I want is, I love in Kurzweil's book the idea of having a personal assistant that is a computer that is as human as a human.
It's
and
Jarvis.
Yeah, exactly, Jarvis. Oh, I would
Here's
love to have
the-
Jarvis from Iron Man.
Well, here's the distinction. We've been talking
Iron
about
Man
computers being toys and tools.
Avengers.
Yeah.
Iron Man
Not
3.
things without
Black
a personality or anything. But what about
And ask Jarvis.
what about when computers become companions? They become friends to
Yeah.
you.
Like 3PO.
And that might be,
Yeah,
like,
As much as Han would argue with them, they were friends.
Yeah, they were.
Right. In fact, I think I saw Han shed a little tear when he saw a 3PO all
I
broken
think so.
apart. Yeah.
No, he didn't.
No, he didn't.
Dude, it's Han Solo. He doesn't shed a tear for anyone.
it's in
he
the,
shot
I swear.
first.
When the next edition of Star Wars comes out,
There'll be
you'll
a
see tear.
computer-generated tear.
Exactly.
Going down. Wait, what's the line? What happened? Does he even say anything when they bring 3PO in? I think he's just pissed off.
Well, he just came out of torture.
Yeah, that's a good point.
They'll
You
dub
think
in.
you're in a bad mood?
I know what they'll do. They'll dub in. No.
There'll be a picture of him with a tear, and the tear in his mouth. But yeah,
But personal assist, like the Jetsons, they're made.
Yeah,
Rosie.
I like
stuff.
from Spider-Man 2099, his personal system. It was Marilyn Monroe type, but it would follow him everywhere, and I love that idea of it. It's just a hologram and pop up, and he could talk to it. It was a really cool concept.
Did you see that program in 2057 where the kid had the digital assistant shark? That there was a hologram that followed him around?
On the Science Channel thing. Yeah, that was very cool. They showed and the kid had a shark, and it was like his friend.
But it was a hologram,
right?
But it was his digital assistant.
Yeah, it followed him around, but and it took care of him, kept him safe, but also had fun with him.
Most
played
kids
games.
have to just use their imagination to have such a friend.
Yeah, in the future, people.
I don't want
imagine.
Abraham.
But no, you know what was also cool about that? I remember the mom worked at the police station, and she went like this, and like a screen appeared right here on her hand. That was so
like
awesome.
Minority Report.
Yeah, it was that type of thing. She would just be like,
that type thing.
It was very cool.
Yeah.
Or like an AI. Where you
Crap, we're gonna have to find that for
check
the
out
show
the
notes.
mirror in your
Was that
palm.
Science Channel? Well, 2050.
2057.
All right. Yeah. Anyway,
There was
so
like 4 or 5 programs of it.
I
But
think
how often are those futures things really, really accurate? You know, we'd be in flying cars here. In
well, you know what? I
1999.
think though, as we're getting closer to the singularity, we're gonna start seeing things that are more closely.
I think that we see big innovations, but as Waz pointed out in that one video, a lot of these things are kind of invented by
We
accident.
stumble upon it.
well,
And we don't see
They
them
happen
coming.
eventually.
somebody's gonna see him.
They do
Example:
happen eventually.
The Island. Not a very good movie. What's his name? Transformer guy. Explosions.
Michael Bay?
Michael Bay did The Island.
Right.
Okay movie. Best part.
Yeah, you're being generous.
Maybe
The surface, yeah.
So
surface.
there are good ideas
Yeah,
there.
yeah, the
but
surface-
he crapped all over them. That's
Yeah,
the problem.
but what I'm saying is that surface table. I saw that, and I was like,
Oh, you know, it was out,
holy
yeah.
crap!
Yeah, we watched
and
that
we were,
together.
yeah, both of us were like, oh my god, he
credit
could just,
card down
he
and
could just
stuff.
go, and he was like,
That was the best
I was
damn
like,
part of the movie.
I don't want a computer anymore. I want that table.
Okay, that's
have
like
the-
Tony
but we have the
Stark's
service
little
now.
service
Right,
thing,
of course.
you know?
When we saw Tony Stark's
Right.
office, Kayla and I were both there watching the movie, going,
Yeah, exactly.
We were having nerdgasms.
we
all
still
over the place.
watch that, and we still go, oh.
Yeah.
And the thing
How
is,
he's moving images from one screen
oh,
to
it's
another.
so awesome,
Yeah.
and that's what's going to happen with the singularity. I mean, we're going to see things like that. So what I'm saying is, not everything is going to pan out, but there are ones that I think that are very well thought out, which will pan out.
Yeah.
But I see what you're saying. More by coincidence, because
Well,
we're
I
going to
think
stumble on.
not-
I mean,
not
we got an
necessarily by
iPad now,
coincidence,
and
but here's one of the things, like movies like Minority Report are actually showing.
yeah, that's true.
Like that's the thing. Like a lot of designers are moving toward that thing. But then you look at something like Microsoft Kinect, and although it's good and it does nice things for games, it doesn't have the resolution for you to do serious work with it.
Right.
And I think that maybe the technology trying to follow art might be making us spark up the wrong
interesting.
tree. There might be a more natural way to do things
They
that
are,
we're not seeing.
some
because-
surgeons are using the Kinect in surgery, though.
Okay.
So there are some applications they're starting to use with it.
Yeah.
It's a
Seriously.
technology
But the thing is,
starting.
though, you know, how long do you want to keep your hands in front of you to use your computer? You know, that's why we have things like palm rests in front of our keyboards and things like that. I mean, I just it's
It'd just
a
be
very
easier to
active.
speak.
Well, let's.
Well, that's why using like Windows 8 on a desktop is just, to me, very unnatural.
yeah.
To sit there and have your arms up and just be doing
Right.
in front of
Right.
you, vertical.
and that's the whole thing is it's not really made for a desktop because you're going to have a patent. They probably did a good move by
And I
doing
think
that.
back to the Woz video, which we'll probably include. I think he had it right. You need to have computers get smart enough that they actually understand your mood and your emotion and the nuance of language.
Yeah, you're right.
Because until we get there, we have to be acting like we're pantomiming what we want. You know, like,
Well,
computer, do this,
and
and
it'll-
you look like you're Chris Farley. there, and like,
Over there! Over there!
move this window down. You know, like,
For our younger
Oh, that's gonna
fans,
hurt.
Chris Farley was a 90s comedian.
yes.
It was freaking hilarious. Watch Tommy.
So
Boy.
like, I just think like we have to be extra expressive to make a computer do what we want. But once it understands natural language and understands that we change our minds about things, and just in simple speech, like what does Waz say? Is
Oh,
like,
he says,
4,
like,
no, I
I
mean
meant-
8.
yeah.
And everyone in the room understands what you mean, but a computer is going to spell out 4, no, I mean 8.
right.
So
Well-
until we get the parsing right, it's not.
Yeah, my
quite
dragon,
gonna fly.
naturally speaking, does that same thing.
Yeah.
It's not smart enough yet to know when I'm doing that.
But we're on the right track, and I think if you look back at computers like from the 50s or 60s, like how did we what's it called? input with them? What's the word?
Interact?
Interact, thank you. How did we interact with it? There were buttons, and knobs, and that was it, Then the keyboard and everything because of the typewriter, kind of generated from that. But that's just it. Who would have thought the mouse? I mean, that doesn't come from anything.
Right.
It actually came from the idea of the pointer.
It's a new paradigm.
Yeah, it's weird. It came from the kind of virtual space because you created the pointer first, I would imagine, and then you thought, well, how can I control that pointer? And then the mouse was created. And so who knows what type of, what we're going to use to interact with future computers. Right now, the touchscreen's getting really big because the iPad brought it out, and now it is the easiest way to do things, but it has limited ability. The typing is still a problem. Yeah. And things like on your phone with, what's that called? Swipe makes it easier. Yeah. But I still will just as much use voice recognition. But you can't always use voice recognition because you're in an environment where it doesn't work. Yeah. And I don't want people looking at me like, hey, will you pick up some milk and condoms on the way home?
Yeah, don't forget the X-Lax.
Yeah, exactly.
But with the touchscreens and stuff, it's also an economical issue.
Speaking of
getting that...
Sorry, go ahead. It's okay.
I'm the one who interrupts people in this, not you.
But they got to a point to where financially companies can make the iPad, the Nexus, and all that at a reasonable price where people can afford them and have this technology. Where before, when the first touchpads come out, it's like we talked before about the LCD screens and stuff, how they were thousands of dollars, and now it's just like you can get one for like $300.
Yeah,
man, I got my Kindle for $34, and it's amazing. What
and then that's exactly it. It doesn't have to be an iPad, which is super computing power. The Kindle kind of came from the other direction, where they were just a book reader, and they added things to make it more like that.
Technology changes the need of the users, the need of society.
I was going to throw in there. Speaking of people overhearing embarrassing things, Booger, did you check your voicemails from 2 weeks back?
Booger,
did Walmart call you? Walgreens?
Wake up!
Are you there?
Did you get your voicemails from 2 weeks back?
Yes, I did.
What did you think? How are your balls?
What the hell are you talking about?
Did you get a voicemail from Walgreens?
Yeah.
When we lost... Okay.
Oh, yeah, I got that. Yes, I remember what you're talking about.
Yeah.
All right. What was it? A prescription?
For
ball herpes.
Ball herpes. There we go.
Yeah, ball herpes. Yeah.
Oh God.
That was episode 0010. No, wait, that's too many.
010.
Yes, when we lost Booger. Booger down. Booger's down.
We lost him to ball herpes.
It was a sad episode. Yes. Made me cry on the inside. So let's wrap up with the future of technology here. I mean, what are we looking at with the singularity and computers in the future? It's going to be integrated, is our best guess, I suppose.
Yeah, it's using your mind, thoughts, to control things.
I'm looking forward to being able to expand my mind because, and I don't mean that in a drug way. I mean in
like the Matrix.
Yeah, in an intelligence way, because I'm tired of being confined by my brain's ability to think of very simple things at one time. I'm always in this cloud of chaos trying to figure out just how life works. It's the whole ADD thing, but it's like I wish I had more computing power in my head so I could just organize better.
Like Brainiac.
Yeah. So that's what I'm looking forward to. Or if it's not going to be in my brain, at least have an assistant who's next to me and I'm saying, hey, remember this, do this, figure this out for me.
Well, if I may wax fantastic here, I'm going to
say
that.
Oh, wax is fantastic. Wax is fantastic.
Here we go.
Not yours specifically, Joey.
Damn it.
The whole audience. So I think that what we witnessed...
You slut.
Thank you. So I think what we witnessed in our lifetime was the democratization of a lot of things in the world that were brought about by the digital revolution. And even when we were younger, having a computer was kind of a status thing. It was like, oh, look at me, I've got a computer. And sometimes it was the kind of computer you had made you feel special because you thought this computer is better than someone else's computer. And that kind of thing has worn away to now this technology is commoditized, is ubiquitous. And, if I want the hottest, cell phone or tablet or whatever, I go down to the store just like anyone else and pick it up. I'm not part of some exclusive club that has the access and the know-how.
About, you don't need microcomputers.
This computer's 10% faster than this other lousy one.
That's why you bought that thing for Bitcoin. You want to feel special.
That's true.
Yeah, thanks,
I want to be on the bleeding edge. Thanks, Steve Jobs.
They're making computers so universal now. Yeah.
And people who weren't into computers, it would be like, he'll never be part of the team. He's not one of us.
But it's I don't look badly upon that though, because I think that's just part of the natural thing. When a technology
that's true.
is mature, it becomes a commodity, and it means it's something everyone has access to, and that's a good thing for the world. Yeah. And if you look at things like revolutions in the Middle East and what's happening with media, Kale is going to be here, and he did crowdfunding to publish his own book online. Yeah. Who had that option 20 years ago?
Yeah, I sure did.
Did you have the $10,000 to fire up the presses and start a book printing? And then how many copies do you need to order for the first edition? So really what's happening here is the whole world is just becoming more integrated and decentralized.
Daryl makes
marching on.
Kale just killed the music section.
Daryl makes a great point here, that anybody now, like, look what we're doing now. We're doing a podcast and throwing it out there on the internet. Before, you would need to have thousands of dollars to make a radio station and to try to get out there to get your word.
Well, you had to ask permission.
And ask permission.
Right? Because the thing is, the airwaves are special. There's only so much bandwidth.
And so what did we do?
You have permission to get a radio show.
And what did we do? So we all made mixtapes.
Kind of like.
Yeah. But like blogging, anybody can go on Best Buy, purchase a computer, iPad, whatever, write a blog. They're part of the news cycle now. They're part of the information put out there. That you don't. It's not just the newspapers anymore, or just CNN or just NBC4 or whatever.
The internet has given everyone a voice.
Yes,
and that's a double-edged sword. Yeah. There are some people we would kind of wish didn't have a voice, but that's
no. We just don't go to their website.
Just to close it up, if you look at it in the sense of evolution, which is how we've been kind of looking at this, any living organism that we've seen on Earth, when it's been created, the different parts of it have networked and come together and help to make that living organism. And if you think of the way evolution works, it starts off with something small. Those things connect in a network way. They get down. and then
the next thing you know, you have 16-year-old girls sending naked pictures of themselves to 14-year-old boys. Wonderful.
See,
thank you, Booger.
Booger's just not quite as... optimistic about this technology.
But that's why we love him.
No, but it is true. I mean, just look at cyberbullying.
Well, they would have taken Polaroids.
I'm glad we did not have the internet
to each other back in the day. So
there's going to be problems with it as much as there's going to be good things. But on the same token, what I'm trying to say is that networking is part of evolution, and the evolution of humans, networking is part of our evolution too. I mean, it started with phone lines connecting us all, and that went through the internet, and the internet just boosted it up.
And the internet is alive.
It's alive!
We are a tool using
weird science.
Kick-ass movie. Yes, it is.
I mean, it's just like electricity or gas or whatever. You can't live without it now.
It's your new Back to the Future.
Internet.
No, it's not nowhere near Back to the Future. Okay, so does anyone want to add anything else? I think we're about at wrap-up time since I'm singing. And
that's about the time.
Talking about magic and technology, bits and pieces, and
I know there's something I wanted to throw in there. I just, for the life of me, can't remember what the heck it was.
Go. Come on, Booger. Think about it.
Come on, Booger.
What is it? Come on.
Do it.
He's not making it.
All right, fine. Too late.
Put it in the show notes.
We brought up the first computer I had. We brought up my origins of my interest, which was war games. We brought up BBSs. We brought up teenage porn. What else is there?
Not too much.
That covers it. All right, ladies and gentlemen. That is it for today. Unless you want to add anything, Ralph?
No.
Okay, Ralph's not going to add anything.
Dean Martin.
Dean
Martin.
Okay, so let's try that again. You want to add anything, Ralph?
Dean Martin.
Okay, thank you. So let's go ahead and wrap up the evolution of digital evolution, and let's talk about next week. Next week. The choice is mine.
It's going to be about weird science either.
Magic and technology.
Wider
bits
wings.
and pieces and
Bits and pieces. And my creation.
6-inch foot long.
Is it real? Hey,
Okay.
every 6 inch is your creation.
Wait.
I
we
beg
get
your
to
pardon,
choose.
gentlemen.
What?
I did think I wanted to expand a little bit.
Go ahead.
It's on evolution. Yes, it is natural. It will continue to expand, but we must always remember to remain responsible with it and not just do it for its own sake. Make sure that we don't go overboard, because like I said, that's where you have cyberbullying and stuff like that. We're not responsible enough with it. We give it to individuals who just are not ready for it. And that's why you start getting all the crap we just mentioned before. We have to make sure that we're not just going to go wild with it and let it expand for its own sake. That's pretty much what I want to do.
Now I'm sad.
Yeah.
Well, the thing is that
Way to bring it
that has
down,
been-
Booger.
That's been through all.
Way to bring it down.
I actually have a response for that.
It's a wonderful tool. It's a blessing. Just don't let it burn your house down.
I don't
Well, that's. I wanted to say that just like in the past when cavemen had knives, you didn't want to give that knife to your little 4-year-old child who might hurt themselves or somebody else. Tools.
We kind of keep
are,
the knives away from Ralph, too.
right.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
But the thing is that I'm just saying that technology and tools are always dangerous, but can be dangerous, but can
we have
also be used for good.
I think
We have to
as,
learn as a society.
I think as part of evolution, the those who use them in a poor or dangerous way are pretty much weeded out for the most part. But there's always going to be that kind of negative aspect of everything. I mean, there's still, knives. How old is that technology? And people still stab other people today. Like, what the hell? You think we'd be better people, but no.
No, they use other
Well,
things.
just remember what Peter, Paul, and Mary said: teach your children well.
And remember what Peter Parker said: with great responsibility. No, that was
his uncle.
Sorry. Okay, so let's. I think this is a good
It's
lead-in.
going to be your subject.
Yes, I think this is a
Yes,
good lead-in
what do we got?
with
Next
great
week?
power comes great responsibility, and what we're talking about, we're going to talk about the geek phenomenon. So we're going to talk
Phenomenon.
about
Phenomenon.
the geek/nerd phenomenon, and I'm saying that in the sense of I want to talk about when we were younger, what a geek or a nerd was compared to what it is today. Because today, being a geek or a nerd isn't a bad thing.
No, geek is chic.
It is cool.
It's Revenge of the Nerds.
Well, and that's what I was saying.
Yeah.
I was saying we could watch Revenge of the Nerds, but that's very much the old version of what
Right.
geeks and nerds were. And it's very different today where a lot of people want to be geeks and want to be nerds, and it's held up in a higher esteem than before. So for your homework, just watch some sort of nerd movie, like maybe I'll come up with something for the
Big
week.
Bang Theory or something.
But basically, I'll put some notes up, and I just want to talk about perception. Big Bang Theory is a perfect example. I mean, right now, that is exactly showing what geeks have become now, and nerds, or whatever you want to call them. Because I think for most of us, for this group anyway, we grew up as kind of the geeks or the nerds, but it wasn't as cool a thing back then.
Still socially awkward, but not as maligned.
Well, we didn't get our ass kicked.
But not
or
as what?
anything.
Maligned.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Still socially awkward, but not as maligned. Okay, so that's going to be next week. So
I'm just a little awkward over here.
just tune in for that one. That'll be fun.
Sounds neat.
Sounds exciting. Okay, so that's it for today. Now remember, our email is working. Yay! Please email us.
No, but don't email working.
It's show.
Email show
What are we?
at IamRambling.com.
All right.
If you want to email one of us privately, if you just want to talk to us, you can put our name, Joey, Kale, Booger. Is it Booger?
Yes,
Yeah,
it's Booger.
Booger, Paul, Daryl. And then...
For 2 R's.
Yeah. What?
YL.
Oh, yeah, for Daryl. I thought for Booger. Booger.
No, two O's. 2 O's for Booger.
At
get that really, really
IamRambling.com. And, of course, check out our website.
Booger.
We have to make sure how I've seen about 1,001 spellings of booger. How did you guys spell it? For the email purpose.
The main way.
Booger.
How
Perfect,
else do
okay.
you spell
Yeah.
it?
How else do you spell
Blogger?
booger?
I don't know. What's going on?
Booger.
No, I've seen it with a U. I've seen it with 2 G's.
That's Bugger.
Booger.
I agree.
Yeah.
The voice you did there, that was your pet will look at Bowel.
Well, Joey, don't get too critical. It was your sister that was the first one that misspelled it for me.
Let's get critical. I wanna get. I'm singing. Time to end. All right, everybody. Thank you very much for joining us today. This is Joey Shamble. You can find me at IamRambling.com.
I'm Cale Anderson. You can find me at RomsRants at blogspot.com.
I'm Paul Hottinger, and you can find me at heyitspaul.com.
Daryl Jors.com, Giors.
Booger, I'm pointing at you.
And Booger, you can find me at I don't know where the hell I am.com.
Ralph, what about you? Where can we find
Booger,
you?
you can find me at I have a huge delay.
Nowhere.
Will cease to
Ralph
exist.
He is.
Good luck.
He's off the grid.
So that's it for today. Thank you guys for joining us, and all I can say is weird science.
Technology.
Bits and pieces and the bits and pieces.
And I like my technology. Computers
Time
are
to
so
stop.
cool that make me feel so good. Oh yeah.
Thanks for listening. You can now stop screaming at the open air. Listeners should put their minds back in their upright positions and resume traditional thinking. Find us on IamRambling.com for access to all of our weekly ramblings, show notes, general discussions, and any projects from Incoherent Ramblings. Like us on Facebook and rate us on iTunes. So long, and thanks for all the fish.